concerned. She was so beautiful, and she started dating. Everybody was like, he was concerned about that. But they really, no, I mean, my uncles now just absolutely adore us. But she ended up taking the offer, stopped working, and taking money from her brothers to support us. And after at the age of 18, I left. I actually dropped out of high school, and I went on a trip around the world with a boyfriend, and that's where my story sort of, I started talking about my life pretty much there. And my mother stayed behind because she had she met the love of her life, who was this wonderful Jewish man in Morocco. So here was another thing.
She met him in Morocco. Okay.
Yes.
What was he doing there?
He owned a gym.
Okay.
He was a gym.
Of all places, he owned
coach.
a gym. Yeah.
Yes, and that's how she met him. She was going to the gym, so he initiated her to weightlifting and things like that. He was actually a bodybuilder originally at one point, and so he opened this gym, and he met her, and this was the love story of her life.
Yeah.
So here's this Muslim woman with 4 children.
Yeah.
In love with this man who was about 3 or 4 years younger than her.
Interesting. Yes.
In Morocco, and really, really madly in love. Their affair lasted about 6 years, and
did they ever get married?
They would have loved to, but they didn't. His family was totally opposed. I mean, come on, she was a Muslim woman. You have to remember this again. Even though in Morocco the tensions between the Jews and the Arabs were never what they were in, let's say, Egypt or Syria or any of those. I mean, there was always really harmonious relationships. I have to say, there was never any skirmishes. There never were any. There was never any violence in Morocco against Jews ever. And in fact, Moroccan Jews go back to very, very far back in history. And there still are. There's still more Jews in Morocco than in any other Arab country. So this was the love affair of her life. And when the affair ended, she came to join us. I mean, she had sent us to America by then. I had been traveling for 4 years, selling books all over the world. Decided that I wanted to learn English, went to England to spend 6 months to learn English. Then we ended up being in America to go to college.
Now, coming to America, completely different world.
Yes.
You growing up basically with a different culture, not only with a different culture, but with different values, probably.
Yes. Well, not so different. Here's Ingrid. This is what I need to emphasize. We were living a very Western lifestyle by the fact that we were in French schools. I spoke French and I wrote and read French much longer before I took Arabic as a second language in 6th grade. Okay? Yeah. So, and I never was fluent in it because in Morocco we have the Moroccan dialect, which is very different from the classical Arabic that people learn in school. So, I was a little French girl. I was 14. I was wearing miniskirts and I was smoking. So, this is a terrible thing to say, but that's what kids did. I mean, this were the 70s. This was sexual liberation, and So I lived really a very Western lifestyle. Going to Europe and coming to America was not a shock to me. It was
not that.
It was more like home.
Yeah.
It felt like home.
That's how it felt to me, coming home. Moving into the United States was like, I obviously was born in Germany. I assure you, I was born in the wrong country. I didn't belong there. Guys, we got to take a break, and we shall return after these messages.
You can't put a price on true love. But in the end, every little girl has a dream. And though over time the details may change, one thing still remains the same. The feeling she gets walking down that aisle. Come experience your dream at Gurney's Inn in Montauk.
I remember the moment clearly.
I'll never forget
forget that moment.
as long as I live.
I realized at that moment, when we first saw the damage, these people really needed us. And I was going to make a difference, right here in my community. Together with local responders, we cleared trees and collapsed walls. We had to get to the family trapped beneath. As a citizen soldier, I made a difference.
Be there for your community at NationalGuard.com.
I just knew you would stay with me and Wafa Hallam and Gurney's Inn, of course, overlooking the beautiful ocean here
Beautiful
in Montauk.
ocean.
Ms. Wafa, we have one more segment to talk about your life, which means talk about your book, because this book is your mother's and your life.
Right.
You studied, of all things, you studied politics.
I studied politics. I studied politics because I was extremely interested in what was happening. I mean, throughout my travel, that really made it more interesting. But coming to America, obviously, was it was important to me. Politics, international relations, Middle Eastern studies. But I ended up on Wall Street.
Yes, yes.
As opposed to.
Did it ever help you? I mean, obviously working on Wall Street, but what was your background, your knowledge in politics? Was that
Absolutely.
helpful? Was it?
Oh,
Okay.
absolutely. No
Especially on
question
Wall
about it.
Street.
In fact, I'm so glad I've studied politics rather than finance because, yes, it opens your mind. I mean, you know what's going on, the dynamics of relations between countries, the history, because you need to know history in order to be in politics, although that's not really true for most people. But yeah, for me, it was critically important. And I still continue to be. I'm extremely curious. I'm an avid reader. I'm always seeking information. I'm always learning new things. But going into Wall Street, I had to learn everything because I did not really have a training in finance, but I had to learn everything. And that's, I think, what the striking thing about this book is that here's a girl who was married in the heart of a Medina in Morocco without running water in a very traditional setting, and her oldest daughter ending up, in the heart of Manhattan on the 47th floor of the City Court
If
building.
that isn't an American dream story, what is, guys? Huh? Come on, give this girl a break. Come on. Wow.
And she was proud of that.
She was proud.
That was her biggest accomplishment.
Yes.
The feeling that, my God, I've done something with my life. She was very
Wafa
proud of it.
Hallam on Wall Street. What did you do there?
I was a senior financial advisor and vice president at Merrill Lynch. And I dealt with rich people. I advised them, I managed their wealth, I helped them with their loans and mortgages and insurance.
And while you helped them
Trust.
with their
Yes.
money, you helped yourself, of course, because it came with a big salary.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, a lot of commissions.
And that allowed you to buy your adorable house in Sag Harbor. Am I seeing this right?
Oh, Sag Harbor came much later. I didn't know. I came in after I left Wall Street, and I came into a different, part of my life. Sag Harbor was almost by luck.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to read the book to know how that happened. But it happened really. It was not planned at all. I had planned everything in my life, except coming to the Hamptons, except living here.
You know that we have quite a few interesting authors, highly acclaimed authors living in Sag Harbor as well as in Montauk.
Yes.
Yeah. I am going to have on one of my next shows as well, Miss Helga, Stones from the River.
Yes.
Yes. So Sag Harbor is quite interesting.
Yeah, it's a
I
very
think you fit
creative
in.
place.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Ms. Wafa, leaving Wall Street, why?
Oh, it was a time of turmoil for me and for the world because it was after 9/11, the complete meltdown of the markets, the tech bubble, the bursting of
Yes,
the tech
the
bubble,
tech bubble, yeah.
and my mother's illness. My mother's illness and operation, and I had a breakdown of sorts.
Yeah.
A terrible breakdown, a time of huge confusion, of reassessing everything. My mother's illness and
What-
the Iraq War. Identity crisis. a lot of things happened at that time for me. And
Did you buy the red sports car?
no.
Because that's what I did when I got into my identity crisis. I had to buy a red sports car, and I drove around in my top down, of course, in my red sports car.
I should have done that.
Yes, it works. It works.
I
It works
know,
only
it's
for a
great
while,
therapy.
but it works.
No, I was actually seeing a therapist.
Yes. You should have bought that red sports car. It's much prettier.
Ingrid, I should have met you earlier.
And much cheaper, honestly. Well, maybe not really. Mine was quite something else.
Red sports car. Yes.
Wafa, in each life, there is a message for everybody else.
Yes.
And you're here today on the American Dream Show to share, please, what your message is to all our viewers.
Yes.
And by saying, you know what, I had to overcome obstacles. This is what I did. What can we learn from you?
Yes. What you can learn from me, what you can learn from this book, first of all, I think, is that regardless of your background, your culture, your language, your heritage or ethnicity, we're all the same. We're all human beings with the same experiences. And the book speaks to people because they recognize themselves in it. The relationship between my mother and child, the crisis that came afterwards. But most of all, what I learned writing this book, because it was an extraordinarily cathartic experience for me, and I advise anyone who has problems to write. That is the greatest therapy, Ingrid. You should think of doing that. You pour yourself out and you learn. And what I have learned is that everything that I had held dear in the past, the status, the money, the title, you know, the Merrill Lynch and the whatever, Wall Street, the name, the looks, all of that is secondary to realizing who you really are, to be living in the present, to understand that who you are has nothing to do with what the ego tells you you are, and that you are the same as everyone else, and that you should see the beauty in life and live your life to the fullest. And Sag Harbor has been the denouement a little bit, but it brought me to where I feel is home, which is now I'm interested in spirituality. I'm writing about spirituality. I learned to not plan my life and be in control of it as I had always been, to live in the moment. I mean, honestly, if anything, this is what I want people to learn, to awake, to be conscious, to understand what is important in life. Yeah.
Here's this beautiful American woman, all American.
Yes,
woman.
all American.
All American she is. Wafa Faith Hallam, the author of The Road from Morocco, on the American Dream Show in beautiful Montauk. Ms. Wafa, please, you have to share with us something. Tell us something in several languages that you speak, in a couple of languages. First of all, in Arabic, because I never honestly heard anybody speaking in Arabic.
Really?
And maybe a little bit in French.
Okay.
In Arabic. How about this beautiful day that we're having today? Obviously, we're enjoying being on the show together. It's a nice day, something like that.
شكرا إنجريد على my Arabic is so poor. I'm gonna say it in Moroccan.
Yeah, okay.
بارك الله فيك اللي عرضتي عليا. هذا نهار كبير وشكرا جزيلا.
I'll buy it. Anything she sells, right?
C'est plus facile en français. C'est beaucoup plus facile pour moi. Je suis très heureuse de t'avoir connu, de vous avoir connu. C'est un plaisir et merci beaucoup.
And on this note, guys, tune in again.
My Arabic is a disaster. It took me